we are doing grade 11 Euclidean Geometry, and when we're doing Euclidean Geometry, the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the properties of a circle. Why? Because at times the theorems, you're going to deal with 9 theorems under grade 11 work, but now when someone doesn't know the features or the properties of a circle, then it becomes more difficult for such a person to understand what the theorem is talking about. So I'm going to start with the usual that you learned from primary, that if there is a line that is coming from one end of the circumference to the other end of the circumference, and it is passing through the center, this line which I just drew, this is what we know as a what? This is what is known as a diameter. And in my definition of a diameter, I spoke about a circumference. What is circumference? The distance right round a circle is what is called circumference. So if I'm at this point, is circumference, circumference, circumference. So I'm going to label it here that the outer part of a circle is what is known as the circumference. Then we have the distance from the center of the circle. So let's say that this point is the center of the circle to the circumference. So I could be moving from there to here. I could be moving from here to there. All of them. So the distance from the center of a circle to the circumference, that is what is known as what? Radius. So what I drew here, this is what we know as radius. Right? Then from there, check this, what do you call it? This part here. From here, from the center to the circumference, it's also radius. From here to there, it's also radius. From here to there, it's radius. I could also go down, it's still radius. Now I want to talk about this part which I'm going to shade here. This part is what we know as a what? As a sector. The sector of a circle. Now I'm going to draw a line from one end of the circumference to the other end of the circumference. But what's the difference between this line and the diameter? The diameter specifically passed through the center of a circle. Now this line is not passing through the center of a circle. So I'm going to label it that this is point A and this is point B. This line which I drew here, this is what is known as a chord. C-H-O-R-D. And we're going to speak about chords a lot when we're dealing with the theorems. This is what is known as a chord. Now I'm going to draw a mini circle so that I can explain something which is related to this chord. So if I draw a circle here and I draw my chord here and I label it point A and point B, we already know that this line is what is known as a chord, right? But what do I want to talk about? Also this part here, the lower part here, this is what is known as an arc. This part here, that is what is known as an arc, right? So we're saying that this part here, this is what is known as an arc. And an arc is a word which is also used in the theorems. Now, what else did I want to speak about? When I drew this circle, observe, and I showed you this chord AB. Well, chord AB is drawn. Do you see that the top part is bigger than the lower part here, right? Now, in mathematics, this part and that part, we know them as segments, but we distinguish them by saying this one is bigger, so we call it major segment. And this part is smaller, so we call it minor segment. This is very, very important because we've got a theorem which talks about angles in the same segment, but people, they get lost, they do not know what is a segment. So this is very, very important. You need to know the segments. Then there is a line which you are being introduced to this year, right? The line which is found outside the circle, but it touches the circle once. This line which I have drawn here, this is what is known as a tangent. A tangent is a line that touches the circle once. So here let's call it C, where it's touching the circle, it's point D and E. So this is a tangent. So at this point in time, of course, we've got a secant. This line which I've drawn like this is what is known as a secant, but we don't really talk a lot or do a lot about secants. So these are the properties of a circle. This is the first part which you need to understand. Thank you.